Okay, today we're just going to do a quick video of my old Kelmark GT455 Dino. Well, it's kind of like the Dino 246 was a Ferrari that was actually designed by his son Dino and was coined the name Dino, and they were actually produced as Dinos, and then later they produced them as Ferraris. And Kelmark, a company in the US and Michigan at the time, built a kit car that kind of resembled the 246 lines and styling, and that's what this car was. Mine, of course, was built on a custom tube frame and had a 455 Oldsmobile rocket engine behind the seats. It was about 470 horsepower with a lot of modifications like roller rockers and higher flow cylinder heads and higher compression. So it was very powerful. The front of the car was Volkswagen Type 3 suspension that was used, and it was basically very close to the Beetle type suspension, but the Type 3 was more heavy duty. Okay, the tube frame tied in to the tops of the front tubular shock towers, and then the tube frame ran to a hoop underneath the dashboard and up the A-arms to the back of the car on each side of the roof. And then at the back of the car, it tied into what was essentially the front clip of a 1970 Oldsmobile Tornado car. The front frame that included the engine and transmission of the Tornado was cut under the firewall down by the feet, where your feet would be in the Oldsmobile car. It was a full frame car, so the frame rails were simply cut, and the rest of the engine and all the hard points and front suspension was retained to become the rear suspension of my car. The front bumper of the Tornado was simply removed, and the frame members that tied into the front bumper remained. And that just became an engine cradle, a subframe that the tube frame tied into. The rear shock towers, which would have been the front towers of the Tornado, were hooked into the tube frame. So the tube frame came into the top of those shock towers. And then you had basically what was a modified Volkswagen pan and a huge frame section that was welded into the tube frame to attach the Tornado frame clip to the tube frame suspension. The pan was Volkswagen, and underneath it, the perimeter of the pan was welded and stiffened with additional tube frame support. So everything was tied together, and it was super strong. That made up the car. The inner tie rod ends, which would have been attached to the steering tiller of the Oldsmobile car, were retained. So the inner tie rod ends on my car were just attached to welded hard points that were welded into the tube frame, so that the front toe in, or the rear toe in, or toe out as it were, could be adjusted with the what was the inner tie rods. So they would just be adjusted and locked, and that's it. That became your rear wheel alignment geometry. So the entire front suspension of the old Tornado car becomes the rear suspension of my Kelmark that included the front disc brakes, which are now the rear disc brakes of my Kelmark GT. The wheels were centerline alloy wheels that had a very negative offset. I picked a set of wheels that I could get positive offsets for the front and negative on the rear to bring the tires into the Kelmark bodywork, or as close as I could at the rear. On the front, with a VW Type 3 axle, I converted it to a front disc brake conversion and use very positive offset wheels to bring the tires out to fill the fenders at the front of the car. The complete turbo hydromatic 425 transmission and transaxle arrangement was retained from the Oldsmobile, and nothing changed on that at all. And the shifter was incorporated into the pan to make it shift as an automatic transmission. The car was very, very fast in a straight line. I put a new quadrajet carburetor on it, and it was extremely quick. However, it didn't handle too great. It was pretty heavy for a small fiberglass bodied car, and the weight savings of a fiberglass body didn't really offset the heavy frame and engine combination of the car. So it was kind of like I remember driving the old big block Corvettes in the 70s, and it had the same feel to it in a sense that, really fast car in a straight line, didn't handle too well in the turns. It wasn't a twisty turny car for canyon racing or anything like that, but it was super fast in a straight line, and probably would have been a pretty good drag car if you set it up for drag racing. The sound that the big block gave was amazing. It was great to run into Cruise Night or any of the car shows with that big block engine, that lumpy idle following you into the show. I mean, people knew it was no little Volkswagen powered kit car. It had the sound of power, and it certainly was powerful and thrilling off the lights. When the lights turned green, holy man, you are pushed back into your seat. It felt like your face was being pushed into itself. It really had straight line power. In fact, I even rigged the quadrajet carburetor so that it would only open 2/3 of the way, because it was almost too much with the carburetor not limited, to the point where I thought the car might, twist up or you could have an accident. So it was like, it had torque that was unbelievable. And there I am standing in front of the car that I built, a proud owner and builder of this fantastic Kelmark GT455 Dino. It had a red Ferrari paint job with Dino emblems on it, and the Ferrari prancing horses on it, and it looked the part. I mounted the windows, or the mirrors, up a little higher on the front windows, kind of like a Testarossa flying mirror style, and I really liked it. It was a lot of fun. Later I installed aluminum valve covers that were more Ferrari looking than these chrome ones that I had on there originally. And the engine was a fantastic piece of engineering. I mean, General Motors in those years, these 455s were unbeatable. The ground shook when you drove by in that car. It was a fabulous machine, one that I'm happy that I completed this car with my good friend Bruce Stone, that really helped me along the way. Um, he's a great car guy and a fantastic guy to be around. He lives on the other side of the country, so I miss him very much. It was just a wonderful time that we had working on these old cars together and showing them off at those Thunder Bay Canadian Tire cruise nights. Well, thanks for watching and have a good holiday season.